And I distributed and still are distributing a film called Life is Cheap but Toilet Paper is Expensive, which is a film by Wayne Wang. And we made a decision to get the film rated because, generally because even a small film like that, if it does not have an MPAA stamp of approval, and the whole rating situation is problematic because the rating system is so successful and because it's so widely used by so many people, not just parents and their children. We felt that in case we had the opportunity with such a small film to get into a little bit of mainstream America where it becomes more and more difficult sometimes to advertise a film that had been X-rated and is now unrated, or either in newspapers or electronic media. The electronic media is even more difficult to get into with a film like that. We decided that it would be a good idea to do it. Now, I thought at the time that there was an outside chance that we'd have a problem, that we'd get an X rating, and when in fact we did get the X rating, the people that I discussed it with were more or less shocked by it. And I'll tell you that there are different variations on the theme, but the real reason that the film was rated X is because a character in the film, and I'm sorry I didn't have film clips to bring along. Barbara asked me to do that, but we're of course on a very limited budget and we ran out. The scene in question ultimately was one where the main character is going through the contents of a briefcase that he's been asked to deliver to a mafia kingpin in Hong Kong. And among the various contents of the briefcase is a magazine, a pornographic magazine called Poppin' Mamas, which features pregnant naked women. And it's in the briefcase. Now, I'm not the filmmaker, but I have a pretty good knowledge of why it's there, and it's there to represent a certain aspect of another character in the film, to show what kind of person he is and what kind of things he would have asked to have brought to him from San Francisco. And Wayne, when it came time to making a decision about, well, if I cut this scene, I get an R, if I don't, I get an X, I won't cut the scene, I agreed with him, and there's no reason to have. And what happens is that the guy is rifling through this magazine, and for about 3 seconds it opens up to a photograph from this magazine that features a naked pregnant woman. And that's it. That's an X-rated film. There's no sexual activity whatsoever in the film. There's almost no violence whatsoever in the film. But Life is Cheap but Toilet Paper is Expensive is an X-rated film according to the MPAA. So what we decided to do, in addition to simply appealing the rating, which is what every distributor does on a film-by-film basis and has done for a decade now, we felt that something more should be done. And together with, excuse me, my brother Jeff, who's also a distributor for many years, we wrote a letter. It was an open letter to Jack Valenti that basically mapped out what we felt was wrong with the rating system and what we felt should be done. We talked about, I am very sorry that I didn't even think to bring the letter here tonight until I was already here. So I'll paraphrase a little bit. We talked about the fact that that if there's going to be a rating system at all, that this one worked fine, more or less, except with regard to the X, which had been co-opted by the pornographers, who not only were able, because the MPAA did not trademark the X rating, it spells out in their rules that yes, you may self-rate your film X. And so they not only, it wasn't like there was a loophole that people took advantage of. They spelled it out in their bylaws that if you'd like, you can take this X rating and do anything you want with it. That's something that never gets talked about too much. But in any case, the X rating came to mean something that it wasn't supposed to mean, and the result was that massive corporate censorship ensued. Into 1982, there were literally hundreds of X-rated films released in America, and since 1982 there were 2. And I think that that's a pretty good indication of a couple of things. One being a certain conservatism that's continued to encroach on all of us, and as well as the fact that the rating system was out of date. So what we asked for in the letter was an additional rating in between the R and the X that would represent adult films that were not pornographic. And we had to get signatures on the film other than Mark and Jeff Lipsky, because we felt that Jack Valenti wouldn't pay too much attention to the letter that way. So what I did for about 2 weeks was to fax this letter, and thank God for fax machines, because otherwise I wouldn't be here tonight. Fax it to as many filmmakers who we could track down, who were either in pre-production, in production, post-production, wherever they were. They were all very busy, and some of them out of the country. And we got very little response in the first few days. Eventually John Sayles signed, and Jim Jarmusch signed, and Spike Lee signed. And I felt, well, nice try. You got a few independents, but that's not going to get us anywhere. But then the next day Barry Levinson signed, and Rob Reiner signed, and Francis Coppola signed, and eventually we had 31 signatures by the time that by the date that we had decided to deliver the letter to the MPAA. Initially, we just wanted Wayne to bring the letter, to walk the letter into the MPAA's office in Sherman Oaks, because CNN and I think Entertainment Tonight had shown interest in being there when he walked it in. So we felt, fine, that's a good way to do it. But Wayne didn't want to do it by himself. So I flew out there, and while our publicist wanted us to sort of blow it up to poster size and make a little bit of a circus out of it, I felt that, particularly with these signatures on the letter, it wasn't a good idea, and it was too important an issue. So we called for a press conference. Now here's Silverlight Entertainment, which is me, Wayne Wang, who, you know, some majority of less than 1% of the people in America know. Here are the 2 of us conducting a press conference on the lawn of the MPAA on Ventura Boulevard in Sherman Oaks, and you know, half expecting Variety to show up, and maybe Hollywood Reporter, and CNN and Entertainment Tonight, if we were lucky. And what happened was that we set up, we had a podium that we rented, and my sister-in-law made X and A-rated cupcakes and iced tea, and we got there a little bit early, and Wayne showed up, and there was actually somebody from the LA Times, so we figured, great, and we were off to the side talking to him for a while. And when we turned around, there were something like 15 microphones on the podium and 7 camera crews, and it was a slow news day, is basically what happened. If Bob Hope had died, the mayor had, you know, gotten into an accident of some kind, again, it wouldn't have happened. So all along the way, the rating system god, or whoever it was watching over us, and it's not Jack Valenti. In any case, we had our press conference. We got tremendous coverage. And at the press conference, we announced that we had decided to self-rate the film A, which was, in the letter, we suggested either an A that would represent adult or an M for mature, that those were the kinds of letters that should have been used in between the R and the X. The film was to be released in 2 or 3 weeks, and we made the announcement that we would self-rate the film A and try to push it through the system at the New York Times and the LA Times and anywhere else that we opened the film. The New York Times, the LA Times, San Francisco Chronicle, all have accepted the rating. The ads that we used with an A rating, and again, I'm sorry that I don't have the exact language here, but we used a letter A, sort of similar to the MPAA look, and we had an explanation for what the A was, which was basically that it was an adult film that was non-pornographic, and below that we had an explanation about the letter, the open letter that many top directors believe that the MPAA's rating system is out of date and that it needs to change. And after some discussion within the workings of the New York Times, they accepted the ad, so that was a victory for us. And at the time, I felt that it would probably be somewhere between 6 to 18 months before the MPAA had to act, because tremendous pressure was brought between the Miramax suit, which created a lot of publicity, what we did, which we felt was important because it was fighting the fight from the inside out. Our attitude was basically that it was a family problem, it was an industry problem that would be much quicker resolved from the inside rather than imposed by the outside, which bore itself out. So I was very surprised to hear that something was about to happen, that the change was imminent, except that the change turned out to be, and this is the first time actually that I saw this, the official news release, but it says right here in black and white that the name of the X category will be changed to NC-17. So great, it's what did we accomplish? What did the MPAA accomplish? What did they fix? And the answer is nothing. The same problems exist. If the producer of Debbie Does Dallas Part 36, unlikely as it may be, decided to submit the film for a rating to the MPAA, what rating would it get? It would get NC-17, just like Life is Cheap, just like Henry and June, just like any other film. So if I'm a newspaper publisher in Seattle, let's say, which is a paper that traditionally has given us problems as independent distributors, and we say, or I say to the MPAA as the publisher, well, if Debbie Does Dallas is going to get an NC-17, how am I supposed to know which films are going to be a problem for me? Am I going to get pickets outside my office building? It resolves absolutely nothing. It was a stopgap measure. It was the answer for Henry and June, which has not even the first picture has gone out unscathed, because in the first 2 weeks you've got theaters in the Boston area refusing to play the film, although that was sort of reversed, and the politicians who instigated that pulled back, but the theaters still wouldn't play the film. You've got newspapers in Alabama and California that won't take advertising for NC-17 films. One, Henry and June specifically, and the other, any NC-17 film. And in a certain sense, I don't blame them. Unless they're willing to hire people simply to screen every movie that opens in the country to see whether they feel, based on their own personal standards, whether a film is actually pornographic or not, or ultra-violent or not. I understand the reasoning. I don't agree with it, but I understand it. The problem that existed still exists. I don't see an additional change coming anytime soon, even though it should. I don't know what Mr. Abrams feels about it, but I have a feeling that we sort of have similar opinions about it, I hope. Jack Valenti, the last thing I'll say is that he maintains that putting a rating in between the R and the X would open the MPAA up to lawsuits, and that they would have to make qualitative judgments about what is artistic bestiality and what is non-artistic bestiality, and other issues like that. I mean, that's literally what he said on occasion. And I'll leave you with this thought, which is that you can walk into any of the thousands of video stores, for instance, that rent or sell pornographic tapes in this country, and for a decade, these store owners have been dealing with the problem very effectively and efficiently, and you can go into any of them and see on one side of the store truly pornographic videos, like Debbie Does Dallas, and on the complete other side of the store, you'll find the hundreds or thousands of films that have had to go out unrated, that were originally X-rated by the MPAA, that did not deserve to be, that were adult films, that were non-pornographic. And they don't even see these films, and they know, based on the publicity, based on what they read, the reviews, whatnot, that that this set of films are adult films that are not pornographic, and these films are produced simply for prurient interests. And Jack Valenti and his organization can't make those same determinations that these thousands of video store owners have been making for a decade, then I think someone needs to step into his job that's willing to take responsibility for the success of the system, which is the basic problem.